food security. Now I am requesting to Dr. Sushil Dixit. He is former environmental scientist from Queen's University, Kingston. He has completed his PhD in 1986. His major area of research includes environmental and climate changes. He has published more than 75 research articles in peer-reviewed international journals. He supervised over 50 projects of national and international importance and showed his presence in more than 100 national and international conferences and workshops. Now I am requesting to Dr. Sushil Dixit for his presentation on impact of food security and biodiversity on nutrition in developing world.
Thank you, Ashwani ji. At this time, I would really very thankful for you organizing this session, and thanks to all speakers and participants for their attention to such an important issue that that we all are facing in developing worlds and also in developed worlds world to a certain extent. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. So just see how it works. Let me start now.
Yes, sir. Please.
Can you see? Can you see the presentation now? Hello?
Not now, sir.
Not now?
Screen sharing.
Screen sharing, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Can you see the presentation?
Share your PPT.
Yes, PowerPoint. Do you see that?
No, sir.
नहीं दिखाई पड़ रहा अच्छा दिखना तो चाहिए
Dr. Mohit Kumar, kindly help him. Dr. Mohit?
अब दिखा?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's great. So I'll be talking very briefly on impact of food security and biodiversity on nutrition in developing world. I mean, we have really heard very much about agriculture, how to do in a sustainable way, organic way, and from Dr. Bruce about homo options. So just in terms of the background, just 1 minute. Okay.
ठीक चल रहा है सर थोड़ा सा आप आराम से यस बैकग्राउंड आ गया
So in terms of the background, food is essential to human well-being. We all know that. Enhancing the food production remains a primary goal for the developing nation, and it's also true for developed nations. Globally, there are more than 1.3 billion people living in poverty, still living in poverty in 21st century. Nearly 3/4 of them live in rural areas, in villages, and in small towns, and virtually all of them directly or indirectly are dependent on agriculture. Though global food production has continued to increase over the last 50-60 years, however, over 1 billion people are still remain undernourished, and another billion people lack adequate nutrition. And this is a serious thing. I think though the production is continue to go, we continue to still share some of these issues in both in mostly in developing countries, but also in some of the communities of the developed nations as well. Biodiversity is extremely important in terms of the sustainable agriculture and also human health and the production. Since 12,000 years ago, when human began domesticating plants and animals, agriculture biodiversity has played a pivotal role in food security by sustaining and strengthening food production, overcoming malnutrition, improving health, and poverty alleviation. Sustainable use of genetic resources of food and agriculture are extremely important for agriculture. Integration of biodiversity into food security and anti-hunger policies would generate more socioeconomic benefits, including poverty alleviation. Our knowledge of biodiversity for food and agriculture must improve. We need to give a greater attention to biodiversity. And I will go a little bit more in detail later on this. And there needs to be strategies to address nutrition problems that have systematic and multi-sectorial. So in order to look into some of these issues or solutions, we need to attack through multiple fronts. And many of these fronts are very interlinked. So I'm going to go through a series of major drivers that can really help and give some examples. One of the major drivers is gender empowerment. And we know women and girls make up nearly half of the agricultural labor, even more than half of the agricultural labor force in many developing countries. But majority of them are undernourished. They need to work very hard, and they are spending major portions of their day in hard labor. We need to be sensitive and need to develop approaches that can really help them to improve their health, and also that's going to ultimately affect the food production and security. I can say potential solutions need to focus on reducing workload, improving family diet. That's very important, and that ultimately going to increase their income and livelihood. Other major driver is innovation, and that's where science plays a major role. We need to develop and apply scientific innovation that increase yields while being environmentally, economically sustainable. Enhance efficiency for farming, various types of farming, and adoption of climate resilient agriculture practices. So this way, then we can maintain sustainable inputs for agriculture, such as applying optimal nutrients, promote organic farming, rainwater harvesting, drip irrigation. These are some of the areas where technology has played a major role, and we need to continue to support some of these initiatives and look for innovative ways to help attain sustainable farming. The other driver is fostering market access. You can produce anything you want, but if the market access is not there, it's not going to help our producers, especially small farmers. So small farming small farmers are the major component of farming, especially in developing countries. How we can involve more youth and women entrepreneurs, and they are the one who's going to carry some of this workload for a long time. We can support communal farms, because small farmers sometimes don't have that luxury to approach market. So they need to work together. And I think there has been a lot of success in this front, but we need to continue to work on it. Supply chain and transportation from rural areas to urban areas where a lot of demand is, or where the most of the supply is going to go, that has to be strengthened. Also need to grow valuable products. There has to be a proper market research, how the need of the supply is, what people want, and we need to produce them. But don't get flown away with, and we have seen some of the drastic things, when farmers produce a huge amount of certain products, and we've seen in India, like tomatoes or onions, they come at some time, and nobody wants them. So these farmers and communities have to be very sensible about that. And we need to also realize that food requirements are not homogeneous. There are certain areas, there are certain parts of the country which require different food. And sometime, these food products move from one region to another region as people move, and they bring some of these innovative and new food varieties, and we need to promote them. Reducing post-harvest loss, that's a very, very important driver. And we know that about 1/3 of harvested food is thrown away, or even half of all food is lost. And the issue is both in developing countries and developed countries. But what get lost and what we need to preserve is somewhat different. For example, in developing countries, about 40% loss occurs after the harvesting and during the processing, whereas in industrial countries, about 40% loss occurs at retail and consumer level. So like industrialized countries, they have done a good job in terms of getting access to market and bringing it there, but then the loss is after that. Whereas in developed countries, a greater amount of loss happens before even it gets to the market. So that's a very important issue. We need to, in terms of the scientific aspect, improve harvesting technology and reducing food waste. That's going to be a major challenge. Improving nutrition is one of the major drivers. We need to integrate agricultural production and nutrition across programs and sectors. Develop strategies to test interventions. Grow more nutritious crop, and I think there are some good examples. Many examples. There is a potato variety that produces over 2.5 times more protein than the commercial cultivar, that have high zinc and iron, and that's ultimately going to help to improve the health and well-being of the users, and help to reduce deficiencies of nutrients. Promote home gardening, that helps to increase production and provide fresh product, pesticide-free and chemical-free product to users. Promote diversified diets and fortification. Aquaculture. In terms of the agriculture, aquaculture is also a significant contributor, providing very protein-rich diet to malnourished rural population. Doing livestock rearing. You might have very successful agriculture, but you can also rear livestock there, providing another form of income. Crop rotation and diversification is also important. We all know that, but we continue to work on it and continue to work and develop technology-based crop rotation and diversification. And above all, community-based action to address local causes of malnutrition is very important, because community can bring a lot of resources together, and help each other. Education and training. This is my final slide. Education and training is extremely important. We know education and training are essential for addressing agriculture, biodiversity, nutrition, and poverty reduction. Access to education is lower among rural children, youth, and adults. We know that. And the gap is still there. There has been some improvement, but there is still a vast gap between urban and rural areas. We need to develop quality of education that's needed in rural areas, and universities like SKU and some of these colleges that are being developed closer to where a big population of a big of people are living, where there is a need, is really going to help to help those communities. We need to develop curriculum that really works for or is helpful to rural communities, to rural sector, because sometimes what's needed for urban education and application may not be applicable to rural areas. So enhancing the institution capacity for rural development and food security is really critical. There has been some very significant work has been done, but we all need to continue to work on this front to help our um, rural fellows in terms of development. So this is all I had to present in today's presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity again, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sushil Dixit ji, for your nice presentation on impact of food security and biodiversity on nutrition in developing world. Thank you very much. Now I am requesting to our next speaker, who is also